Oke, selamat pagi semuanya, Bapak dan Ibu yang sudah hadir. Terima kasih sudah join di acara webinar kita pagi ini ya. Jadi kita akan segera mulai karena sudah banyak yang join. Jadi saya akan membawakan dalam bahasa Indonesia ya, tapi nanti presenter atau speaker kita dari Google akan membawakan dalam bahasa Inggris. Untuk menjaga kelancaran webinar kita, acara kita pagi ini, mohon untuk mikrofon ya bisa di-mute. Nanti kita akan ada Q&A session, boleh disampaikan secara langsung atau selama presentasi berlangsung bisa disampaikan melalui Q&A panel. Jadi di pojok kanan bawah itu ada icon dan bisa dipilih untuk Q&A dan juga bisa disampaikan lewat Q&A panel atau lewat chatnya juga. Ya, jadi kita akan segera mulai ya. Boleh dinyalakan kameranya atau dimatikan juga boleh untuk menghemat bandwidth. Jadi silakan disimak ya acara kita pagi hari ini. Dan topik yang akan kita bawakan adalah mengenai Google Appsheet gitu ya. Jadi mungkin buat Bapak dan Ibu yang merasa apa sih Appsheet itu gitu kan, masih baru, belum paham, masih awam. Nah, ini kita akan memberikan introduction gitu ya, bagaimana Appsheet itu bisa membantu untuk meningkatkan produktivitas kita, terutama dalam hal untuk bisnis proses atau workflow. Mereka sebutnya sebagai no-code development application platform. Jadi kita bisa membuat aplikasi tanpa membutuhkan coding. Masih banyak peserta yang hadir nih. Terima kasih ya untuk antusiasnya. Senang sekali bisa mengadakan acara ini dan terima kasih juga untuk supportnya untuk bisa mengikuti webinar kita di pagi ini. Nah, jadi mungkin sedikit introduction ya. Saya lihat banyak sekali yang sudah kenal dengan EIKON Technology, tapi ada juga yang masih mungkin baru pertama kali join ya di acara webinar kita. Jadi kita dari EIKON Technology itu berdiri tahun 2007 gitu ya. Jadi seiring dengan perjalanan kita memang fokus di cloud business. Jadi bisnis kita memang semua yang related atau terlibat di dunia cloud. Nah, salah satu yang kita banyak ya mendeploy atau yang kita support itu adalah Google Workspace. Jadi mungkin kalau Bapak dan Ibu familiar, mungkin sebelumnya namanya adalah G Suite gitu ya. Di awal namanya adalah Google Apps. Jadi sudah bertransformasi, berevolusi sampai sedemikian rupa ya, sampai kita bisa meeting online. Dulunya nggak ada nih yang namanya Google Meet gitu ya. Dulu namanya Hangout, tapi di awal 2007 ya, sejak pertama kali Google Apps ini dirilis oleh Google, itu belum ada fasilitas untuk video conference. Tapi sekarang sudah dilengkapi bahkan dengan recording, Q&A, dan lain sebagainya. Jadi secara produk itu sudah sangat-sangat signifikan sekali fitur yang bisa dimanfaatkan dan juga fasilitas yang disediakan oleh Google. Ya, jadi kami dari EIKON Technology memang fokus ke cloud teknologi dan kita adalah premier partner untuk Google Cloud dari Google. Jadi apabila Bapak dan Ibu ingin tahu lebih lanjut gitu ya mengenai cloud teknologi dari Google, kebutuhannya seperti apa, baik dari sisi security, dari sisi endpoint atau device gitu ya. Jadi kita bisa nanti berdiskusi lebih lanjut mungkin secara offline setelah webinar. Nah, jadi apa sih yang bisa kita leverage atau kita manfaatkan dari Google Cloud gitu ya. Jadi ada beberapa core enterprise application yang bisa kita manfaatkan. Jadi yang pertama adalah Google Workspace. Saya yakin Bapak dan Ibu yang hadir di sini sudah banyak ya yang menggunakan Google Workspace. Jadi ada aplikasi untuk komunikasi, ada aplikasi untuk kolaborasinya juga. Ya. Nah, selain itu, Google investasi di Indonesia itu sangat-sangat luar biasa. Ya, sampai mereka sekarang sudah mempunyai data center di Jakarta. Bukan cuma satu, tapi sudah ada 3 zone yang ada di Jakarta. Jadi bagi Bapak dan Ibu yang interested untuk explore lebih lanjut, bisa masuk nanti ke halaman websitenya cloud.google.com ya. Jadi kalau Bapak pengen punya infrastruktur di cloud, data, melakukan analisis dan lain sebagainya, itu bisa kita leverage teknologi dari Google Cloud. Nah, yang berikutnya yang lagi demand-nya cukup tinggi itu adalah Chrome ya. Jadi endpoint atau device yang dimana kita bisa menciptakan environment yang sangat-sangat secure, terutama di masa pandemi gitu ya, di mana kita mau nggak mau kita harus operating, kalau nggak full ya mungkin paling tidak secara hybrid remote working. Ya, jadi gimana kita menjaga data perusahaan, bagaimana kita menciptakan environment yang aman tanpa kita mengorbankan user experience atau kemudahan akses, security, dan lain sebagainya dari sisi end user. Nah, disinilah peran Chrome device itu menjadi penting. Ya, nah topik yang akan kita bawakan itu adalah Appsheet, ya, No Code Application Development Platform. Ya, jadi itu mungkin yang bisa saya buka. Jadi saya Johannes, nanti kalau misalnya Bapak dan Ibu ada pertanyaan, monggo boleh disampaikan lewat chat panel ataupun Q&A panel. Ya, saya dari EIKON Technology dan kali ini akan dibawakan untuk materinya oleh Luke dari Google. Ya, jadi akan dibawakan dalam bahasa Inggris. Jadi jangan khawatir karena di Google Meet ini sudah ada captionnya. Jadi di tengah-tengah di bagian bawah itu ada tulisan CC gitu ya. Jadi silakan diklik di situ supaya ketika presenter menyampaikan dalam bahasa Inggris ada captionnya. Mungkin akan membantu untuk apa istilahnya untuk lebih kita supaya bisa memahami. Ya, okay. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Luke from Google. Luke, are you there?
Yes. Hi.
Okay. Hi. Hopefully everybody is in a good health, yeah. So we can get started. So please feel free. The stage is yours.
Perfect. All right. I might start just by presenting my screen. So I take over the slides and then I'll kick off from there. So just give me 1 minute. All right, so what I'm planning on doing today is I'll go through a couple of slides at the start of this presentation just to explain kind of what Appsheet is and where it fits in. And then after that, I'm going to dive in and do a live demo of Appsheet as well. One of the things I love about Appsheet is it's really fast to do things and to build apps. So I'm going to, on this call, live build an app in front of you so you can see how you could do that as well. But before we get into the live demo, it's useful to know where Appsheet fits and what problem it solves. So really, I see Appsheet as a way of driving digital transformation down to the individuals in an organization. Instead of having digital transformation be, big, expensive central projects that are run out of IT, Appsheet allows anyone in an organization to be able to digitally transform their work. And I know digital transformation means a lot of different things to different people, but I think specifically Appsheet is around democratization of technology. So you have line of business teams who can solve a business problem themselves instead of having to go to IT. But at the same time, IT can trust that the platform that the business teams are using is secure and governed, so they don't have to worry about security and compliance. So that's really the problem space that Appsheet is focused on. It's that rapid innovation across an organization, but in a secure way. And the reality is that employees are already looking for solutions to digitize or transform their work. So either today, a certain business process might be manual and paper-based, so they're tracking it using paper and physical means. Of course, they could be maybe developing a solution internally. Maybe they could have purchased shadow IT and maybe a third-party SaaS platform. Or maybe they're using forms and spreadsheets today to do a lot of work. And each of these has their pros and cons. But overall, one of the key challenges is that each of them solves the problem to some extent, but doesn't provide true flexibility for modernizing that process. So Appsheet as a tool, I think about it doing three key things. Firstly, Appsheet always connects to data. So you could have, for example, if I was someone in a line of business team who was not technical, I might be using a spreadsheet today. So I could have a spreadsheet on Google Drive, or I could have an Excel file on Office 365. If I'm a little bit more technical, maybe I'm good with data, I could be using a MySQL database or another database like BigQuery. If I'm really technical, I could even use APIs or maybe connect to Salesforce. So Appsheet doesn't store any data. It always connects to where that data already lives. Once it's connected, you can then customize an app. So Appsheet will look at the data structure that you have in that data set. It will then analyze what it thinks the user is trying to do and will build a first version of the app. From there, the user can customize it to exactly how they wish. And they could even build in additional maybe automations to automate certain tasks as part of the app. And the final thing is, because Appsheet's no code, every time you make a change in Appsheet, it automatically rebuilds the app for mobile, tablet, and also web. So you don't have to worry about customizing for every single different screen type. And it is really fast. That's one of the things that I really love about no code and Appsheet, which is that traditionally when you were building an app, you'd start with an idea, you'd spin up a project spec, you'd then have to assign a development team, you'd code it, and then you get a solution. But often by the time you've got to the solution, you have to change something, so you go back to the start again. Whereas in Appsheet, you can see it's really rapid. Even just from sheets, you can create an app with data you already have and build an app straight away. So it's really fast. And one of the nice things is that if you're using Google Workspace, then we have really deep integrations between Appsheet and Workspace to make it even easier. So for example, if you already have a business process today that's running using a Google form, we have an add-on where from the Google form, you can create an Appsheet app, and it will take everything in that form and rebuild it as an app. So then you can do more advanced things like maybe scan barcodes or automate other processes on the back of a form submission. If you have your files in Drive, of course, you can access all of your files. A lot of Appsheet apps are built using Google Sheets as the backend for the app. So where technology is at such a point now where you can build an entire app just off a spreadsheet, which is pretty incredible. And this is how I think about Appsheet fitting in. You know, if you have Workspace, you already have a whole range of apps that you get as part of Workspace. What Appsheet does is it helps you build custom apps for all of the other business problems or use cases that you might have. So for example, you know, you might have a sales team that uses an Appsheet app to generate quotes. You could have maybe a warehouse team that uses it to manage their inventory. Or even if people are submitting leave requests in the organization, you could use an Appsheet app for that. So it's really flexible what you can do. But I wanted to give some more specific examples because I think sometimes tools like Appsheet, there's so much that you can do that it's almost hard to really understand exactly what you should do. So I'll start off with, if you're in an organization now that has frontline workers, so you know, teams that are maybe salespeople in the field or people in a warehouse who are on the front line of your delivery and logistics teams, then there's a couple of examples here of apps that we've already built and integrated with Workspace that you could copy. So we've got, as an example, equipment inspections app, and everything I'm showing in the screenshots, these are real apps that you can copy. So we can share them after the call. An example, if you do deliveries or you have a field team that needs to move items between locations, then there's a field delivery app. And one of the things I like about this one is it shows how Appsheet's actually integrated with Google Maps. So if you've got data that has addresses, Appsheet can automatically plot that onto a Google map. And even if you had, say, a form in this app where someone was typing an address, we use Google Maps autocomplete to suggest and complete the address for the user. So you can make sure that when the address gets entered into the AppSheet app, it is correct. A final example here is this I see really often in companies that have factory floors or they're manufacturing or logistics focused. We have a safety and risk reporting app. So if there's any issues in the field or in the store, in the warehouse, someone could use an AppSheet app to notify management of that issue. And then the management team could use this to track the issue being corrected. Now, moving completely away from the field to the office, you can also do some really interesting things with office work. Like, for example, I see all the time requests in the office for approval management. Every organization, even within organizations, has different ways of managing approvals. So it's nice in AppSheet being able to customize your approval workflow to exactly how you want it to work, or the individual team. So I'll demonstrate actually building an approval workflow from scratch later on this call to show you how fast you can build it out. But another one I want to show later on as well is this IT ticketing. So I'm not going to show it necessarily because you're sitting there going, we need to manage our IT tickets better. If you are, great, there's a sample app for it. But the reason I'm going to show it is it's the type of app that in AppSheet you could really quickly change and make it work for a different use case. Like, for example, it might be legal reviews and people have to submit a contract for review and want to track its status. Well, you could actually take this sample app in the middle and tweak that for a legal use case or any other ticket management use case. The final one is if you have teams that engage with customers, then you do have some options to use AppSheet apps to help them do their jobs better as well. The first example here is for virtual care. So if you're in healthcare and maybe at the moment you have to manage tele visits, so you want to notify the individual patient of the Google Meet link they need to join, allow them to track their appointments, any specific records related to the appointment, this app could be a great one to look at. If you have branches, then there's another sample app here for digital branches. So think a bank that needs to manage all the appointments for people coming into the branch because of COVID. They need to limit the number of people in there. You can actually use an AppSheet app to schedule the appointments and also notify the customer and remind them that they have an upcoming appointment. Now, you've probably got a sense so far that there is a lot that you can do with AppSheet. It's a very broad tool, which is good because one of the things I see AppSheet being used for is to govern shadow IT. So today you think if you're from the IT team on this call, then you're probably thinking there's a lot happening in the organization that you don't have visibility to. And it could be a security risk and it's ungoverned. And you have each line of business off buying different tools for different needs that they have. Well, with AppSheet, you could instead propose to those line of business teams that they use this single platform that's governed and secured. It gives IT full visibility of what's happening in the organization so you can best support it and understand the challenges that the organization has. And you can also control it. So for example, on the right here, you can see we've got the ability to define policies. Now, AppSheet really is built for enterprise and business because one of the key requests that customers have is, well, I want all of our apps to force sign-in. I want to make sure that they're only from our workplace and not some other organization. Well, very quickly, you can see the top two policies here we've already pre-built in the product. But of course, you might have really specific requirements. You can always build them custom as well. Now, this is, I think, for the individual user, is one of the most exciting parts of AppSheet. And that is that AppSheet's designed to take things that traditionally would not be available to someone who's not technical and make them simple. So for example, building an app traditionally would be really complex. You can see someone here in this screenshot actually building it just by typing. So as they're typing in this box, you can see it continually rebuilding the app on the right. So very rapidly using AI to build an app super fast. The other thing that I'll show a bit in the product demo shortly is we've got other machine learning capabilities that we make available to app creators as well. So for example, you might want to analyze the sentiment of comments submitted in approval requests. Well, you could actually build a machine learning model within AppSheet without knowing anything about machine learning. It's really simple and designed for anyone to be able to use. The other interesting one is optical character recognition. So if you do have paper forms now that are being used widely in the organization, if they always have the same format, you could actually train AppSheet so that someone could take a photo of the form, and AppSheet automatically reads it and inputs that data into the AppSheet form and digitizes it straight away. So there's some really cool machine learning and AI features that I think are worth checking out. But one of the things I mentioned at the start was AppSheet doesn't store data. So I just wanted to be really clear on what kind of data you can use with AppSheet. So of course, if you're not technical, use a spreadsheet. Could be in Google Drive, could be an Excel file. If you have maybe Box or Dropbox, you could also use them as well. And don't forget, as the admin, you can always block these additional data sources if you want it as well. If you need data, again, you've got SQL Server, you've got lots of examples here. We've just also released a BigQuery connector as well for the data-friendly users. And then for the more technical ones, of course, you could use Apigee. You could also use OData to connect to SAP or other more advanced systems. Now, there's some really quick examples. I think if you're thinking, I've got one app I want to build with AppSheet, that's great. But the real power of AppSheet is digitizing a really wide array of use cases. So I wanted to give this example. Solvay is an organization in Europe that does chemical manufacturing. And one of the things they found was they had a very manual, process-centric workforce. Everything was manual, everything was paper-based. So they introduced AppSheet, and they've now empowered 400 people in their organization to build apps. And they've now deployed 1,000 apps over the organization to help them digitize more of their work. And they often mention that it is all about agility. They want to move really fast to make their team productive, and they use AppSheet to do that. The second example, and this customer, BHI, uses AppSheet and Workspace. So their focus was on reducing IT spend. So the amount of different shadow IT applications and SaaS vendors that they had meant there was an opportunity for them to rationalize them onto AppSheet. And just as a really quick example, I like this stat they have here, just to make it a bit more real. So they had one app that was focused on inspection. So they're a construction company. Traditionally, an inspection would take around 2 hours to do, and now with AppSheet, it takes 6 minutes, which they estimate is about a $50,000 monthly saving. So I think that's just a really good example of like how rapidly you can save time for the employees with a digital process. And the final slide I'm going to show is just where we're positioned. So the reason why we've partnered with EIKON is AppSheet is a leading no-code and low-code tool. So it's definitely worth trying out if you're looking at something in this space. And with that, I'm going to make a bit of a shift. I'm going to leave presentation mode and I'm going to live build an app. As I said before, I think that one of the really cool things about AppSheet is just how fast you can build an app. Now, before I actually build it, I just want to show you what the end product looks like. So you're probably sitting there going, like, what does an AppSheet app actually look like? So I'm just going to go to appsheet.com. Of course, you could also go here and have a look as well. You'll see, if I just zoom in a bit, in the top here, there's sample apps. So we don't expect all users to just start with a blank sheet of paper. We try and help most users to get something done as fast as they can using examples that we've already built. And there's a ton of examples in here that you could use. I'm just going to quickly show you 2 examples. So actually, I might do another one which I quite like, inspections. So this is just 2 very different apps for different purposes, but I just wanted to show how different features show up in there. The first one's vehicle inspection. So if you're an organization that has maybe a fleet that you manage, and so you've got a team of people who are out there in company-owned cars, then you probably have to do regular inspections on those. And don't forget, this app you could completely rebuild for a different use case. It's just an example that it's used for vehicles right now. So I mentioned earlier, AppSheet always rebuilds apps for whatever device you're on. So you can see it's given me a mobile view here. I can also see straight away the same app in tablet view. And of course, I could open it in full screen if I was on a desktop or a laptop. So you can see the same app has just rebuilt itself for each of these views. Now, if I just click on just one of these cars, this, as it's an inspection app, you can see some prior inspections that have occurred here. Now, I want to do a new inspection. So you can see, of course, have on my previous cars, take some information from the car. One of the things I quite like here is you think a lot of inspection workflows, people often want to take a photo of something and then maybe draw on it saying like, this is where the issue is. Well, here with AppSheet, you can actually do that by, if I was on a mobile device, you can see there's a camera icon. I could take a quick photo, the photo appears in here, and then I can just draw directly on the photo and say, that's where the issue is. And of course, because I'm on my desktop, I could always manually upload a photo, but just for demo purposes, I think you get the idea. You can see you can do some pretty complex forms, and these might be things today that you're doing in maybe a Google form or something like that. Once I've done the inspection, I can actually save that. And then now I'll have a history of all the inspections related to that vehicle. Now, the second one I wanted to show briefly is how to do, sorry, I'm going this view, a facility inspection. So we just showed a vehicle, and I just want to show you a kind of different way you could approach. So this is a different app that's focused on facilities. So think of it as like a warehouse, a branch, something like that, where you have assets that you need to regularly inspect. So I'm just going to click on one of them now. So you can see, of course, because this data has an address, AppSheet's got a Google map embedded. I can click on that data. I can see over here more information, and I can see parts of this area. So you can see the main entrance. I'm just going to click on that. And you can see it's got a history of inspections down here. And I can inspect it. And again, really quickly inspect it. And then note that down. And even include a signature as well. One of the things that I really focus on with inspection apps like this is auditability. So you can see even here, we're automatically recording the time and who did the inspection, and you can't edit them. Like I'm trying to click on these right now and I actually can't change them. So if you've got something that you need to be sure it was done a certain way and by a certain person and at a certain time, great, you can enforce that in AppSheet. So I just wanted to show you just some example end result apps. But let's start with a brand new one. So let's assume that maybe today you're doing approvals where there's an executive or a manager that has to approve certain requests in the organization. Now, you've probably got a data set similar to this. We've got the request name, the type of request, some comments, when it was submitted, who submitted it, who I want to approve it, and then what the approval response was, so either approved or denied. And I can, again, just for audit purposes, double check and record who approved it and also when they approved it. The other thing is, normally with any request or approval, there's probably a document that you want to add as well. So you can see I've just got an additional document tab here where I just have the name, description, the file, and who uploaded the document. So really straightforward data set. So if you use Workspace today, the great news is if you've got a data set like this, it's really easy to build an AppSheet app. You go to the Tools menu at the top, AppSheet, create an app. So the good news is it's really fast. If you had maybe data in a different location that wasn't a sheet, you just go straight to AppSheet, you'd add a new app, and you can create it for existing data, and then you connect it to SAP or SQL or whatever the data set is. For the demo purposes today, I'm just going to show it in this view, which is just from a sheet. So let's have a look at what AppSheet's done. It's built me on the side here just an app v1 based on the data that it's seen. You see it's kind of filling in a couple of things. It's creating an ID automatically for me for each request that is submitted. It's recording the date, and then also there's another date down the bottom. Now it looks okay, but I think there's some more things that I want to do with this app. So the first thing is I'm a big believer in things being well branded and clear that they're part of the company. Now this is of course going to be an internal app. So I'm just going to quickly tweak some of how this app looks. So in AppSheet, you've got the emulator, you've got the main editor, and the navigation on the side. So if I just click UX or user experience, and then click into the brand, you can see there's a couple of things I can change pretty quickly. And don't forget, this is optimized for speed. We want users to be able to build an app really fast. So a lot of this is just going to be checkboxes and moving really quickly. Later on, I'll show you some more advanced things, but just to get started, I'm just going to choose, let's say this is your company color. You can see it's added the color there. I'm going to tweak the logo because I think, yeah, it's okay. I'd rather a logo from my organization. So I'm just going to check in my Google Drive. I've got Exec Approvals app, which is the one I'm working on now. I've got an approval icon. And I'm also going to choose a nice launch icon as well. Really simple. And then you'll see I'm going to make a change here where I add the view name. You can see that just popped up in the emulator, and also the logo. So the one I added just here is now straight away visible in the app. Awesome. The other thing I'm going to do is, and one of the things that we get asked for all the time is the ability for apps to work offline. So I just wanted to show that even just by starting to build this, AppSheet's already making this available offline. If you don't want it, of course, you could just turn that off. But I find if you do have users that are in the field, maybe they're not going to be near it, have good internet all the time, it's probably best to keep this on. So at least they can keep working, and when they get internet connectivity, AppSheet just resyncs. And if there's lots of images and documents, you could even store that content securely on their device as well. It stays within the AppSheet app, so it's fully encrypted and protected. Now I can make sure it performs really fast by getting AppSheet to cache some of the results if I wanted. And one of the things I like to do is every time someone uses my app, I want them to have the latest data. So I'm just going to sync on start. So I just made a couple of tweaks there about performance and just getting the app to look how I want. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at the data. So you'll remember, of course, that we have two sheets in here. And you can see we have very simple structure up here. Now, this is how it looks in AppSheet. So it's added a table. I can see here our updates allowed. You might have data sets where you don't want users to be able to edit them. You only want them to be able to read that data. You could always set this to read only, turn off deletes, turn off updates, make a whole lot of changes if you wanted. This little beaker here is something to keep an eye out for as we go through this demo and you look at AppSheet. This beaker allows you to build more advanced expressions. So you could, for example, set a rule here where administrators of the app can update, delete, add records. But just an average end user, it's read only. So you have that flexibility where you can build a lot more advanced expressions if you wanted to as well. Now, if I click View Columns, you can see the same data structure from the sheet now appears here in AppSheet. I'm just going to hide the app just for a moment so I can just talk you through. So of course, we've got the column names. I can change the type of column. I can say whether I want it to show, be editable, is it required that the user completes that? Now, these things here you'll see, they're all checkboxes, but as I mentioned before, there are beakers, so you can always do more advanced things if you wanted with all of these. But just to keep it simple for the user, in this view, we keep it as checkboxes. You can have AppSheet automatically calculate some things. So if you remember, for example, it has the date appearing here. That's because we have AppSheet's automatically added this expression to add today's date into there. Of course, I can also, if you've got, maybe a use case where you're scanning a barcode or you've got NFC tags, you can also tell a column that it can scan barcodes or NFC tags. And also, if you've got something that's really secure and it's confidential, not only will AppSheet not store that data in the first place, but in this last column, PII, for personally identifiable information, you can tick this and then it will hide that data from even AppSheet's audit logs. So you can make sure that if something's secure, not even AppSheet can see. So now that we've got an understanding of how data looks in AppSheet, the first thing that I want to do is actually add that second table. So you'll see it added requests. I just want to add documents as well. Now, one of the nice things as you build apps with AppSheet is if you had a data set that had a lot of existing data, AppSheet would read that and then understand how is these two data sets linked and automatically build a link between the two. So in this example, I've got a blank data set, so AppSheet probably hasn't done it. But I'm just going to quickly build that to show you how you could do it. So you'll see as I make changes here, some of them will begin to appear over on the side. Firstly, this request ID, it's more just to make sure that we have always unique records. I don't think the user should be able to see or edit that, so I'm just going to hide that. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to link this table, so the documents, to the request table. You can see I've just got this request ID here, which if I go into the request table, it's got the same column, which means that I can create a reference to tell AppSheet these two things are related. I'm just going to click on request ID and say ref, which of course is a reference. And AppSheet says here, all of this is really simple language. This should be for a non-technical user, so even they can build an app. So which table does this column reference? Well, it references the requests table. And the other nice thing here is there's this is a part of, which basically allows me to say that all of the documents in this table are all going to be linked to a request all of the time. So I'm just going to say done. Now, I don't think I want the request ID to actually be visible either. So let me just hide that too. I'm just going to save this. Now I'm saving it because I've created that reference. Now the other reason is I wanted to show you that AppSheet assumes that you don't always exactly know how to do something just yet. So for example, because I've told AppSheet I don't want to show these two columns, it's turned off another setting called search, because it's assuming if you're not showing it to the user, why should they be able to search for it? So AppSheet's tried to help me by just quickly making that change. Now, if I go into documents, which of course is this table here, and I go into the form, you'll see, great. A lot of the form has been pre-built by AppSheet automatically. For example, file automatically now is a file picker, so I didn't have to do that manually. Now, a couple of other changes I do want to make to this, and one of them here is uploaded by. So for audit purposes, I like to automatically calculate who is uploading the document, and also when did they do that. So uploaded by, I'm just going to change this into an email. Let me just save that quickly. And I'm just going to hide this just so you can see the full row. So you can see uploaded by is an email, and this initial value, so what first populates, should be the user's email. Now, there you can do more advanced things in AppSheet using expressions, and because AppSheet knows that most people are not going to be technical, it tries to give a lot of examples. So you'll see this is the expression assistant. See, there's a lot of expressions in here where it's already building examples in here. So you can see that, for example, like I want the date time to be under or above this, or if it's blank, then show me this other field. So there's lots of examples built for me. I'm going to use a pretty simple one today, which is I'm going to say I want whoever's logged in their email address to populate. So you can see in other, I've just got email here. I'm just going to go insert. It's inserted the expression. AppSheet's checked. Great. Yep, that looks right to me. And the date, I'm just going to switch to date time. It's trying to help by adding today, but I actually want to do now. So I get the date and the time. And again, adding that, I'm just going to save it again. Now, the reason I'm saving it is because now when I open the form, AppSheet's going to resync the app with the change that I just made. Let me just quickly sync it. And AppSheet's going to show that it understands who I am that's logged into the app, and it's going to pre-fill that in the form. Let's have a look. Document. This is the form I'm editing. Great. There's my email address. You can see here, right here down the bottom, and it's put the date time in. Awesome. Now, of course, you look at this and think, well, it's not going to be great for auditing if someone can edit it. So of course, I'm going to turn that off. So straight away, you can see I can't change that as the user. The other thing is, there's no point someone adding a document if we're not going to force them to have a name, description, and also upload a file. So I'm just going to turn them on as required, and you'll see boom, boom, boom. They're all required now. Great. So I think in this form, the tweak that I would make, now I like to keep things simple for the user. So I'm just going to show you how you can make a quick tweak here if you wanted. So one of the things I like is down here at the bottom, we've got the view and the table. The table, of course, is here, documents, documents. It's the table that powers the data in this view. And then I've actually got what the view is. So if I click on that, AppSheet takes me to this form view. And you can see there's something here, column order. So if I just click add and just show you really briefly this, you can see all the columns over here are now here as well. So I can just restructure this if I wanted and just say, yes, I want document name, description, and file, but I don't want to show the uploaded by. So I'm just going to remove that. And there you go, straight away, gone and updated. Now, the reason I do that is just to show that, traditionally, if you built this out from scratch, that would be a whole lot of work to do what I just did. And I literally, with a couple of clicks, just changed this. Now, the second thing I'm going to do is, now that I've figured the document submission out, I'm going to change the request view. Now, this is the primary view. When someone submits a new request, this is where they're going to hit. So let's make a couple of tweaks to how that works. The first thing I'm going to do is turn off showing the ID. Again, I don't think it's personally that useful to have it there. The second thing, though, is I'm going to show you a couple of different ways you can display data. So for the category here, I think it's tedious having people always type things in if they don't need to. So I'm going to just edit the category. I'm going to change it to a column called enum, which is basically a multiple choice column. Now, I'm going to add a couple of drop-downs here. Because this is an exec approval app, execs do a lot of hiring. The other thing they do is a lot of discount approvals as well, especially if they're a sales exec or a sales leader. So let's do hiring approval and discount approval. So you can see if I do buttons on the right in the background, you can actually see AppSheet built those. I could do a drop down and force it if I wanted, but I think a button's faster. So I've got that there. Comments looks right to me. The date time, yeah, again, I want that to be the date and the time. So I'm just going to hide this view and just change this again. If you remember before, instead of have today, I just put now instead. Now, if you want to record the individual, then again, the submitted by will make that an email. And then the other thing that we'll do is just make sure that it is the user email that's going in there. But don't forget, that email is whoever's logged into AppSheet will automatically populate their email now. And there's a couple of extra things, like I want the individual requesting an approval in this version to be able to decide who's the approver and type that in. So I'm just going to leave that there. I think that the only tweak I'll make is that that's going to be an email address. And the approval response. Now, this is another example where it really should be multiple choice. Just say approved, or pending review, actually, that can be the first one. Copy that for later use. Approved and rejected. Now, the initial value, you'll see I use it a lot because I love to help a user and make it really fast. So I'm just going to make it that the column of the response status. So I think like, is it approved or is it rejected? I want it to always start with pending review. So we always have a status there. And finally, I just want to do a final audit check and just note down who was the person who clicked the approval button, just so I'm 100% sure. Now, one of the nice things I can do is we have a column type in here where you can tell AppSheet to watch other columns, and if they change, record the time they changed. So you'll see that this response date time, I want every time the response by or the approval response status changes, I want this to update automatically. So I'm just going to change to this change timestamp column. And if I just quickly open the editor of that, you can see it's which columns should it watch for changes? Well, I'd like it to watch the approval response and only update this time if it says approved or rejected. That way, if an approver either rejects or approves something, we'll get that timestamp straight away. And also if they change it, it'll update the timestamp to the new time. So I think that's just something really nice and simple. One of the benefits of referencing or linking to that other table now is every request you submit, we've now got a list of documents that are related to it. So I'm just going to tweak how that displays for the user, just so we can say, just documents. Let's keep it really simple. Now, we've got a whole lot of fields in here. You'll see we've got a whole range of things being displayed. So let's make some changes to cut out some of those fields. Again, like we did before, keep it really simple for the user. So let's go in the editor here. And you remember from before, I did the same thing. I had the view here, I clicked it at the bottom, boom, it opens a part of Appsheet where I can edit it. So I'm just adding all these columns in here, just so I can show you what I really want to be displayed here, which is the request name, category, request as comments. Makes total sense. I want them. Don't need the date and the time it's submitted. I do want them to pick who the approver was, and they should not be able to change the status in this form. So let's hide that.
Look, you are on mute.
Hey, how's that?
Good.
Am I back? Awesome. Apologies. I must have been auto-muted. So I just was showing that in a really rapid couple of seconds, I've tweaked this form. You can see it has everything I need. And I'm just going to give you a quick example now of what it looks like. I'm going to say just like example, submission. This is a hiring approval. Need this approved ASAP. The approver, let's just say for now, the approver's approver at appsheetdemo.com. And I'm just going to add one doc here, which is just approval request doc and key info. Upload the file. It's just a new hire request. Save that. You can see the documents is added here. I could keep adding multiple documents in if I wanted. Let's save the overall request and just quickly force the sync. So the backend Appsheets is going to upload all of the files to the backend, which is Google Drive for this example. And if I go over to the backend, you can see here's my first submission that I just made. And in a moment, I'll probably see that, there you go, the document appeared here as well. If I look at requests, here's my submission. If I click in, I've got everything visible. You can see it's pending review. And I've also got documents at the bottom here. So that all looks pretty good to me. I know it's being really simple, but the idea here is to show that, like just basically how fast it was to do that. Now, a couple of tweaks. I think building the app is one thing. I think making it simple for someone to actually go in there, like an exec to come in and just click approve, is the next critical thing for this app. So I'm going to quickly show you how to build an approval button. All right, let's have a look. So let's go into behavior. Now there's a couple of different things you can do in here. I use actions a lot for when I want to speed up someone doing something in my apps. The first thing is I want there to be an action that appears in this record that says approve. So what I'll do is I'm just going to add a new action. You'll see that Appsheet's already got some system actions that it's built for me that already appear, like send an email just in here. But my new action appears up here at the top. So I'm just going to say approve. Going to approve a request, and it's going to set the approval response to, it's going to be shocking that it's going to be approved. And then the second thing it does is I want it to record. If you remember, I had that column where I wanted to figure out who was submitting a response. So I'm just going to say in here, let me just fix that. I'm just going to put this in so that when someone clicks this button, not only does it set the status to approved, it also notes down who clicked the button, which is useful. So that way you can just double check in here, like did the approver actually approve this request as requested? So I think that's just a useful thing to know. Now, if I just look at the button up here, a couple of little tweaks I'm going to make. The first is, let's just say this is going to be a tick. You can see that's updated. I want it to be prominent. I could also change it around here so I have it down here instead. I'm just going to keep it visible at the top. And the other thing I'm going to add is I only want this button to be visible if you are an approver and if the status is pending review, or as long as it's not approved. You just don't want this button appearing for all the time. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to build a more advanced expression quickly. So I'm saying to Appsheet that I need these two things to be the case. So I've got and, which is an expression. I said the approval response should not equal approved, and the approver should equal the currently logged in user. You can see Appsheet just tries to explain back to me what my expression does. So of course you can understand that it will do what you want it to do. I'm just going to save that. And I'm going to duplicate this quickly. And I'm going to build a rejection button. Reject, of course, change this to rejected. And then in that behavior again, I'm just going to change one thing here and just say, don't show this button if the status is rejected. Because again, if the status is rejected, you shouldn't be able to keep rejecting it. That just doesn't make any sense. So we've added two buttons here. Now they're both appearing now because I've just made this change to the app. I'm just going to save. And just remember that when I've submitted that record, I'm logged in with the email that displays at the bottom here. So luke@appsheetdemo.com. Now the buttons are gone because I'm not the approver. The approver is this approver@appsheetdemo. So let's just try previewing the app. I'm just changing it, my logged in user, to approver@appsheetdemo. And there you go, approve and reject. And if I click approve, the button disappears and the status updates to approved. And even the response by now says approved. So the approver and the response by all match. Great, that's awesome. I can of course reject it if I change my mind, but I just thought that would be a useful thing to show. Now, there's some other tweaks. Like we built the majority of the functionality of this app, but I like to automate emails and some other things as well. So I'm just going to rapidly show you a couple of other tweaks I'm going to make. The first thing is we have a couple of different email fields. So you can see Appsheet's trying to help by saying, here are all these actions that you could do on this record, which, thanks for trying Appsheet, but that's not so useful for me. I just need one. So I'm just going to say down here, you can see there's a system action for the compose email for the approver field. I'm just going to change how this looks. So I can hide this by not displaying it. You can see, boom, one just disappeared. There's another one who actually clicked the approval button. I also don't want that to appear. Great, so I just have the one down here. Now, there is some really kind of interesting things you can do with this as well. If you want to get really advanced with Appsheet apps and do some kind of really cool behind the scenes calculations and do more things for the user. So this approval here, you might want to make it that the only person that can delete it is the person who submitted the record. So you can see I'm logged in as the approver right now, and I can see the delete option here. Now, if I open the delete request, I'm just going to say I only want the delete button to appear if the submitted by column, so you remember when someone submits a record, their email goes here, if that equals the currently logged in user. Appsheet's just going to check that. Yep, the value of that column is equal to that. Awesome, looks good to me. I'll just quickly save it. And don't forget, I've added that, and I am the approver currently logged in, not the submitted by person. And you'll see that the ability to delete is gone. So if I didn't submit it, I now can't delete it. There's no ability to do that anywhere. But of course, if I change this back to Luke at, right, there's the delete button straight away. Now, that's useful to have some buttons and make things fast, but it's the automation in Appsheet, which is where you can, I think, just save a ton of time and actually trigger and prompt people to do something or take an action. So I'm going to show a quick automation. Now, the thing with automations are there's always going to be an event or something that triggers a bot or an automation. Once that's triggered, something will happen. Usually it's a process which is a collection of tasks, like sending an email, a notification, make a document. So let's just show you how that works. The first thing to know is you can build some pretty complex apps if you wanted to. So let's just give you a quick example. If a new record's created, so new row is added, if you wanted to build multi-branching steps in here and have, maybe you have approval workflows where you need 4 different levels to all approve before something's actually finally approved. You could have that in here. So you can see I'm just building a really quick example where you could have, if this condition is met, then do this. Then if this condition is met, then do this. You know, so you've got the multi-levels and you can build some really kind of cool, complex workflows in here. Now, I'm just going to give you a couple of examples for this specific app. The first one is when someone submits a new request for approval, I want to send an email to the approver. So you can see AppSheet's already given me a suggestion, actually. When a new request is created, send an email. I'll click on that. So you can see in here, a request is added, is what's happening. That's triggering. Now, of course, you could do some other interesting things like schedule this. So you could schedule a bot that every week on Monday at 9 a.m. sends a summary of all requests to an approver so they can approve everything at once. Now, in this example, I want them to approve and get an email every time someone requests an approval. So I've just got data change. Yep, looks good. Now, when that's triggered, I want to run a task. Now, there's a whole range of things I could do here. I could run a data action where maybe I change other values in different tables, or maybe I branch it like I showed before, or I call into a different process. So you could make this quite advanced if you wanted. For this demo, I'm just going to keep it simple. So I'm going to run a task, which is sending an email. The task, this could also be a push notification. I could send an SMS. I could build a file, maybe a PDF or a CSV file. Or if you're technical, you could also call a webhook and push information into a different enterprise system that you have. Now, to send an email, I'm going to keep this really simple. I'm going to go to, because there's a beaker, I can make it smart who the email goes to. And if you remember, AppSheet's actually prompting me here by saying here, the approver column is an email. So whoever is the approver in the request that's created should get an email. Easy. Now, I've just got default content on here. If you wanted to, you could do a whole range of things here and customize. You could even, if you've got a template in Word or Docs, you could connect that and build a really beautiful email template with custom company branding and all sorts. For this example, I'm just going to keep the default behavior. So I'm not going to customize that too much. The second, so this bot's all done. Every time a request gets submitted for approval, the approve gets notified. Really easy. Second thing I'm going to do though is when they make a change, so when they approve or reject, I want to then email who submitted it to let them know. So you remember I had an approval response column. So if I just show you quickly in the back end, in the request, I have this approval response where we track what actually happened. So if I just, let's type approval response, maybe let's go approval. I need to make a custom one for this. I just might say like approval confirmed. I'm going to choose an event and just say, actually, I'll do this here. Here we go. And I'll just say, it's giving me some examples in here. Like one is, has the column changed at all? Has it changed to this value, pending review? Has it changed to rejected? I actually want to track it if it happens at all. So if they approve or reject it, the person should get an email, right? So you'll see it's kind of built that trigger for me. All I had to do is, type in the column name and came up with an example. And then of course, I'm just going to send an email. I'm just going to keep it easy again, just to notify this time the person who submitted. And let's see, submitted by is here. Okay, let's go insert. Great. Okay, so Let's just quickly test now that this all works. So I'm just going to do another submission. I'm submitting it as loop, which is good. So I'm just going to say test, submission, hiring, test, and approver at appsheet.demo.com needs to approve this. Sweet. Okay, so I'm just going to force that to sync. And I'm going to open my email. Here we go. So this is, if you see 0 minutes ago, this is the default email. It's telling me I've got a new request. It's this category. This is the person that submitted it, and it's pending review. Of course, if I wanted to test the approval of this, I can now just go approver and just change the app. It's going to open this. I'm going to approve the request and force a sync to make sure for demo purposes it happens really quick. Now, if you didn't click that button, AppSheet would just let the user keep using the app and just sync in the background so the user doesn't have to do anything. Looks like we got a new email. Here we go. Update to application. And as I showed before, you can change all of this. This is just kind of default content. You can see this is now approved, and it's been approved by the approver at this time, which is the same time as I just clicked it. Great. So I showed that because what I wanted you to see is not so much this specific use case, but more the fact that you could have a use case where maybe there's a driver in the field who's going to deliver something, that when they open a record of all their deliveries, they can click a button and it SMSs the customer saying, I'm on my way. Or it could be that, you've got maybe like an inspection where if an inspection fails, using automation, you automatically check that and then notify a floor manager that inspections failed and that this piece of equipment needs to be corrected. Like there really is a lot that you can do in the automation part here of AppSheet, which is really cool. A couple of extra things I'm just going to show just so you can, when you try AppSheet, you can find your way around. Security-wise, you can always enforce users are signed in. You can make sure they sign in with any provider you want. You can limit down data. So for example, in requests, I could add a filter here that just says that I can only see requests that I submitted. So if I'm a different user, I'm not going to see every single approval request in this app. I'm only going to see the ones that I myself actually submitted. I mentioned intelligent features. Now, I think this is some really powerful stuff when you get a bit more advanced with AppSheet. So you can build a predictive model where, for example, you could say like, I want to predict the category of this request. I want to predict it based on the requester's comments. And then if you have a whole range of submissions in the past, when you press save here, it would analyze those submissions in your data set, and then it would build a machine learning model where it would just estimate this automatically for the user. So for example, in the comments, if you said like, oh, we have a new candidate XY, then because I said the word candidate, the machine learning model would say the category is hiring and would set that automatically. The other really cool thing you can do, which unfortunately we don't have time to show today, but it's worth, if you want a demo, reach out to the EIKON team and we're happy to demo further, is AppSheet can even do advanced invoice and receipt analysis and scanning. So if I just go new table, you can see I've just got documents on Google Drive. So what you could do is have a Google Drive folder here with invoices and receipts. And every time an invoice is added, AppSheet analyzes the invoice. And then say, for example, you have a business rule where if an invoice is over $10,000, it must go for review. Well, what you could do, of course, is use automation and say, when a new invoice is added, if the total value is over this amount, send an email to a manager for approval. So that's just a nice example of how you could use some more advanced document AI to save time in your workflows. Now, I know that we've got about 20 minutes left, so I'm going to stop the demo here and we'll shift to some Q&A from all of the team.
Great. Thank you so much, Luke. I think it's really interesting how you demonstrate the app sheet. One thing that I noticed, in about less than 1 hour, you built an awesome apps, and it's really smart apps, yeah, because you can incorporate the AIs and the machine learning into the applications. We do have some questions here. Let me see. Oh, the question is if we can create a drop-down list in the form which the data is coming from the within the spreadsheet, but on a separate sheets.
Yes. Yes, you can. Yeah. So there is an ability in AppSheet to filter a drop-down by another table. So for example, it might be in this use case, you know how I had the approver field with someone typing an email? So you could actually have another table with all your approvers in it. And then you could say to AppSheet, for that approver field, make it a drop-down of that other table. So yeah, absolutely, you can do that. And it's actually really simple. If you remember in my demo, I had a reference column where I kind of linked those two tables. That's how you do it. You basically just say, this column references that table. So it's pretty easy to do.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully it answer your question, yeah, Pak Novianto Natsir. But following that information, look, we have another question here that is still related, yeah. How can we, or if it is possible, to do the approval in levelings? Like, for example, approver number one, once that person approves, it goes to approver two, and so on.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll just quickly show, I might just pull my screen up again just so I can show you and give you some examples as we go. I won't fully build it or anything. I'll just show you the kind of way you would do it in AppSheet. The first thing is in your backend data set. Now, in this example that I gave, I just had one approval response. You could actually say here, approver two, status, and then like approver three, status. And then what you do in AppSheet is you could have an automation, which if you remember before, I showed the branching automation. Let me just quickly show you. So here you would just say in a custom step, branch on this condition. So you'd say, you'd get it to check the condition and say, does approver 1 and 2 and 3 equal approved? If yes, then send an approval email, update the status. So you build it here in automation to manage those more complex flows. And if, you know, one of the other examples in approvals I find is there's somewhere you have like a stage 1 reviewer, and only when they've approved should stage 2 get an email. So here you just build multiple stages and say, has stage 1 approved? If yes, send an email. When stage 2 is approved, then send an email back to the requestor saying that overall request has been approved. So you can do some really cool advanced things with approvals in the automation part.
Great, thank you. Hopefully that answers Pak Edwin's questions, yeah? Let's go to the next one here. Oh, I can take this one on from Francisco, yeah? Is the AppSheet free or included in Google Workspace, or is an add-on? So if you go to the AppSheet websites, then you will see a different editions there. And if you are using the Google Workspace Enterprise Plus editions, AppSheet Core Edition is already included. Yeah, if you are using the Enterprise Edition, please reach out to us and we'll show you, or we can send you some documentation steps on how you can activate your AppSheet accounts. Yeah, for the other Google Workspace users, if you are interested, you know, we have options. Either you can upgrade to the Enterprise Plus editions to get the AppSheet Core, or we can discuss further with you on how you can you know, take advantage or leverage or use this AppSheet for your organizations as an add-on. That's what I was saying. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Francisco. Let me see if we have. Oh, okay. Here is a good question from IT admin. Yeah, sorry, I don't get the name. Can Appsheet take data from other system? For example, for e-recruitment. Look, can you explain a little bit about how flexible Appsheet is to get and support from different data sources?
Yeah, definitely. So today I demoed based on just Google Sheets, but if you wanted to, you could have some other options. So there are some that Appsheet support out of the box. So let me just quickly show you. So if one of the options here you're able to use, great. It should just load a sec. Yep. So you could use any of these out of the box. It could be also cloud databases. To quickly show you just an example of that. Everything from SQL Server through to BigQuery is an option. You can also, if you've got SAP or other more advanced enterprise systems, you could use OData as an option as well. Though if you've got maybe another system that isn't supported there, there is also an option to use the Appsheet API. So you can actually have that other system work with Appsheet via an API as well.
Okay, thank you, Luke. I think it's pretty diverse, yeah, as far as data sources. So I think we can leverage that capability. Yeah, thank you for the question. Next one, we have a question from Bu Marta. Yeah, if we use Google Apps script for our spreadsheet, can we integrate that spreadsheet that has app script? Wow, it's really advanced. How can we integrate that app script basically in the spreadsheet with the app sheet? Look, you're on mute.
Okay. Great question. So we have some good news actually on that, which is we announced recently that we are adding an app script connector to Appsheet as well. So you actually will have two options. So either you could use the app script connector, or as long as the sheet that you have ends up in this kind of a format, you could have app script, updating different fields on here when other things change, absolutely. And what you can do is we've actually got the ability for you to monitor this spreadsheet. So say you have an app script that runs and it updates something. So maybe it updates the response by column. Then if a change occurs, Appsheet can watch the spreadsheet and then trigger other workflows as well. So that's quite a nice feature if you have app script already in a spreadsheet today. But also don't forget that the new app script connector could also be a really good option when we launch that shortly as well.
Look, is it safe to say that whatever we can see on the spreadsheets will be accessible by Appsheet, regardless if it is using app script or any APIs to the spreadsheets?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Just a general tip is, if you are going to try Appsheet after this call, I'd always make sure when you're designing your app that you just have a header column that's first, all the column names here, and then the data. Make sure you just get rid of anything at the top that would block that, because you want Appsheet to be able to see that header column first, so that then it actually populates correctly in Appsheet with those headers appearing here. So just make sure that when you do Appsheet, you structure your spreadsheet that way.
Okay, thank you, Luke. We have another question here from Freddy Wijaya. If we have multiple coordinates data, can Appsheet visualize these coordinates data in maps with routes type of visualizations? For example, not only the coordinates points. So the visualization will look like routes we use in Google Maps if we want to navigate from point A to point B.
Yeah, so the good news on that is I'll actually just show you quickly an example. So we do have, I mentioned earlier, a field delivery sample app, which if you wanted to try this out, you could have a look. I'm just going to open an example really quickly to show you how it would work. So if I was on the road and I had a tablet open that had Google Maps on it, if I just click into active jobs here, you can see firstly, all of the points are placed over the map here. Now, when I click into those points, you can see it's got the address, which I can click onto, but also at the top here, there's actually an action where if I click this, it will open Google Maps and let me use Google Maps to navigate there. So you can see it's entered that straight away. So that's how I'd recommend doing it, is you actually, when you have an address added, AppSheet should automatically recognize that and give you the ability to have driving directions.
Okay, thank you, Luke. Let's see. Next question from Pa Slamet ya. In order to build a small lab on my campus, how to create AppSheet for machine learning processing, especially in classification, huge of data?
So I think you've got to really think about when you use AppSheet and when you don't use AppSheet. So if you're doing, mammoth scale machine learning with really complex custom machine learning models, you'd probably do that in Google Cloud instead. If you had something in here where you were predicting predicting a number or a classification, you probably could do that with AppSheet. So what you would do is, if you already have that data set somewhere, you would just connect to that data set by adding a new table. Once you've added that table in Intelligence, you add a new predictive model, and then you just choose which table will be the training data. So for example, like it could be requests here, and you just tell AppSheet firstly, what is it predicting? This isn't a great example data set, but you pick a column that's predicting, and then you pick all the other columns that are inputs to the machine learning model. Now, when you press save, AppSheet then analyzes the structure of the data and then builds a machine learning and predictive model based on that. So that's how you would do it in AppSheet. If you want to investigate this further, you can also search on AppSheet predictive models. And just the first option here is our help guide, which talks you through the training phase, the prediction phase, like how to actually think about these models. And as you can see here, they're all relatively straightforward to build. And as I said, AppSheet will be useful if it is a relatively straightforward thing you're trying to calculate. If you are doing really advanced ML, you would probably do that in Google Cloud. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Luke. I think it clarifies the questions, yeah? Okay, next question. Look, bear with me, yeah? We kind of have so many good questions here. Okay, interesting one. Can AppSheet replace the function of ERP?
So it depends on the size of the org. It's a bit of an it depends answer. If you are a massive enterprise with hundreds of thousands of SKUs and lots of updates, you probably wouldn't use AppSheet as an ERP. If you're a smaller organization though, I do have examples from customers that use AppSheet as a CRM, as an ERP. They use it to track stock. Like there are examples like that where we do have customers doing things like that. The key thing to note though is, because AppSheet doesn't store any data, the data would still have to live somewhere. So you'd probably have it, say, in like a SQL database of some sort, and then you'd build the ERP type apps in AppSheet. I know that was an it depends answer, but it does depend.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should have further discussions. Yeah, how far the ERP is being has a requirements and can be managed by the AppSheet. Thank you for the questions. Okay. Okay, next one. Can AppSheet change the look and feel with company templates? I think Luke has demonstrated, yeah, we can change the color scheme, the template. We can add some logos. Maybe you want to add a little bit more on that, Luke?
Yeah, so I think you've got to sometimes decide when is the right time to use no code and AppSheet and when you do full custom code. I think if you just want the app to look like your organization, then you'd probably go here into user experience, brand, and then just choose your company logo. Maybe you could do some other company colors in here. You do some really quick changes. You could also do some other formatting where you could build rules where certain data displays differently in the app, and that uses all your company colors, etc. If you wanted an app though that was really deeply customized, maybe it's an external customer facing application, then you'd probably custom code it. So I always think of AppSheet apps as great for when you want them to look like they are part of your organization, but you don't want to spend heaps of time custom building it and getting it to look exactly pixel perfect. So you can do a lot of branding in here, but always remember that there's going to be a trade-off with no code. You can move really fast, yes, but on the flip side, it won't be the same as custom coding and fully building an app from scratch.
Great, thank you. I think we have another question from Novianto here. How can we publish the apps so that any users within the organization can access the app?
That's a great question. It's something I didn't show. So you can, if the users are going to be on a desktop, it's really easy. I'm just going to make sure I've deleted the model so it doesn't send that to the cloud. And I'm just going to show how you would share. So you can see I clicked on users and then it's just got links here. So if I open this browser link, firstly, it's just going to open in a browser for the user. So if they're on desktop, great. If you have users that might be mixed though, so maybe you have users on mobile and tablet as well, then you can actually send this install link instead. Now the way AppSheet works on mobile is we have an AppSheet container app that you'd probably deploy down onto your employee devices using mobile device management. So you deploy the AppSheet app to their mobile device. And then when they click on the link, the install link, it will install that specific AppSheet app onto their device. So when they actually log in to the AppSheet container app, they should be able to see all AppSheet apps that they have access to. So that way they don't have to download each single AppSheet app every time. They just use AppSheet once and then they have access to all of the AppSheet apps in their account. Of course, if you wanted to, you could go one step further and you could actually white label an AppSheet app as well. And then you could deploy that into the iTunes or the Google Play Store. But I would always caution against doing that unless you have to, because with the AppSheet container app, you can move really fast and make updates straight away. If you white label it, you have to go back through the entire App Store approval process, which can take time. So there is a trade-off there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Luke. So basically, we create one application and then we can access it from multiple devices, yeah, including mobile device, tablets, or web browser. So that's good. Next question. Okay, from Faria. I'm currently working on document approval. I'm wondering if I can integrate my existing app with AppSheet or add customization to AppSheet by modifying the source code to incorporate the business logic.
So with AppSheet, a key concept, I guess, is that it is no code. So you don't necessarily get access to the full source code of the apps you build. So when you build them, like if you had a document approval one, you'd probably rebuild it in AppSheet really quickly instead. You wouldn't necessarily kind of take the code from one app and merge it into AppSheet. That's not really a fit for AppSheet. If you have maybe the document sitting in a certain location today, potentially you could connect AppSheet to that location and then build the app in here. But yeah, you wouldn't necessarily kind of merge the code base or anything like that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Luke. I think we'll pick a couple of questions here. I think we are reaching the end of the webinar here. What about the app stability and performance of the app that have been created by the AppSheet compared to native mobile apps?
Yeah, so I think performance, there's a range of factors that impact that. One of the things that I always recommend doing is when you're working on AppSheet, we have this deployment check that you run. That will do some analysis on the application and then tell you any areas that you could improve. Now, if you were building a fully custom coded app, you could probably, customize every single part of it to get it performing exactly how you want. With AppSheet, it's very dependent on the back end. So for example, if you're using a Google Sheet as your backend, you probably wouldn't want that to scale to thousands of users all using the app at the same time. In that case, you'd probably migrate over to maybe a SQL backend, so it's a bit more performant. But with AppSheet, it is a different mindset to building custom apps. So we have some features in AppSheet where you can see how long a sync has taken and what caused that time. So you can keep on optimizing your app, but there will always be a trade-off between no code and custom code. So yeah, it is a balance. If you need something to be performing really super fast and in a custom way, you do a custom app. If you're okay with a second or two of load time for a massive document or a complex app in AppSheet, then that could be okay.
Okay, great. I hope that clarifies. Yeah. Last one, yeah. From Pa Martin. Can AppSheet be used while offline? Yes, definitely. But you can turn on the offline access. Even you can turn on the option for the application to store the data offline. And when you have the connection back, then AppSheet will synchronize with the server. What happens when two users using the app sheets doing the editing at the same row? Is there any like locking system to prevent the editing the same row at the same time?
Yeah, so you'll remember when I showed this app, I did have AppSheet creating a unique ID for each submission. So if you follow this approach that I've got here, AppSheet will try to ensure that every record submitted has a unique identifier. And generally that avoids any duplicates or anything like that. So that's the recommended pattern, using this unique ID identifier for an ID row.
Okay. Great, thank you. I think we are 2 minutes over. Well, I think it's been a great demonstrations and introduction to AppSheets. Thank you so much, Luke, for presenting the product. I think we've got a lot of interesting questions as well from the audience here. Looking forward to see build and more traction in regards to the AppSheet applications here. So I really encourage anyone here who has been participating to build apps for your organizations. There are a couple of ways we can do this. You can go straight to the AppSheet websites, or you can reach out to us. After this, we will give you a feedback form that you can fill in to let us know what use cases you have within your organizations and how we can help you to utilize and leverage the technology from Google Appsheet. Is there anything else you want to add, Luke, in regards to if anyone want to try or do some POCs?
Yeah, I think definitely AppSheet's worth testing with maybe a spreadsheet you already have. So if you already have a Google Sheet today and you have Workspace Enterprise Plus, in the Google Sheet, just go to the Tools menu and then AppSheet and click Create an App and try it yourself. But I generally recommend the fastest and best apps that I use are ones where they're built often with the guidance of our partners like EIKON. So if you do have a specific use case, I'd recommend reaching out to the EIKON team and we can work together and help you figure out the right way to solve or build that in AppSheet.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much. Look, I think we are reaching the end of the webinar today. I have posted the feedback form. Please, anyone who have been participating in this webinar, fill out the form. so that we can understand more on what you need and for the future webinar contents. So thank you so much for participating. And if I can get your another 5 minutes, okay, let me explain in bahasa ya, sorry look. Kita akan ada door prize ya, jadi mohon untuk diisi feedback formnya. Dari situ kita akan undi ya untuk 5 peserta untuk mendapatkan kaos Google Cloud. Jadi silakan diisi untuk feedback formnya. Kita tunggu dan setelah itu kita akan undi dan kita akan berikan kaos Google Cloud untuk 5 peserta. Terima kasih. Oke, kita yeah, feel free to fill out the feedback form, and then we will draw the lucky 5 participants to get Google Cloud t-shirt.